You're listening to Big World Network.
Delroy Versus the Yshtari, Season 2, Episode 5, Sacrificial Offering. Written and read by Baron Stevens. I stared at General Tyson through the slit in the cell door. Me? Surely they wouldn't declare war on all humanity because I did a little damage to their ship. He glared back at me. At that moment, I felt grateful that there was a door between us. His voice carried a quietly dangerous tone. You damaged their royal ship while their queen was on board. If that's not the pinnacle of stupidity, I don't know what is. Millions of lives are at stake because of you. I should have you shot. Seemed like a good idea at the time, I muttered. Don't worry, General, Stella said. I'll make sure he pays dearly for what he's done. Stella, what? How? I thought... How could she turn on me so fast just when I was making progress? General Tyson pointed his finger at me. I'll give you 5 minutes to relinquish control of your bot. He spun around and left the brig, with Stella close behind. I slumped away from the door and collapsed down on the cot. Man, I blew it. It appears so, sir. Perhaps if you'd allow me to talk to the Yshtari, I could explain to them it was all a misunderstanding. I shook my head. Not that. I mean, I really blew it with Stella. Sir, from my observations, you never had anything to blow. I ignored him as I leaned back against the cold wall of the brig. It's the classic love story. Boy meets girl, girl slugs boy, boy saves girl from horrendous death, and girl throws boy into jail to have him executed. I'm not familiar with that one, sir. I sat in silence, mulling over the disappointments in life. I had to face the fact that I'd failed at everything, as an actor, as a legitimate businessman, as an illegitimate businessman, but most of all, I'd failed to win over the girl of my dreams. Oh yeah, and I'd also started a war that could mean the total annihilation of the human species. I'm a complete, total, absolute loser, I said after several minutes. Agreed, Stella said. I looked up to see her peeking through the slit. During all the wallowing in my sorrows, I hadn't heard her approach. Are you ready to let us have Minx yet? She asked. He's all I have left. What reason do I have to give him over to you? But I'd be happy to help them, sir, Minx said. All you have to do is allow me. You wouldn't have to give them my passcode. No, I repeated. I know, it sounded petty, but my mind felt scrambled as I tried to think of a way out of my predicament. You do realize that the fate of humanity is at stake? Stella asked. I stood up and approached the door. Yes, okay, I'll let you borrow Minx on one condition. You set me free with all charges dropped. Look, you imbecile. I told you that I wasn't going to turn you in. Not after what you'd done for me on the planet. But you had me thrown into the brig. And you just said you'd have me pay for what I'd done. Stella rolled her eyes up and shook her head. If I hadn't done that, the general would have taken over custody of you. Didn't you see me wink? No. I was kind of busy at the time fearing for my future. Look, I'm going to let you out of this cell on my authority. You're going to let us borrow Minx. Got it? Got it. Her eyes narrowed and she pointed a finger at me. But don't make me regret this. I wouldn't think of it. Does this mean we're back together again? She growled before turning to say something to the guard. The door clicked and swung open. I was free. I said to Minx, Don't say anything until I give the order. Yes, sir. We followed Stella out of the brig, went down the long corridor, and took the elevator up to the top deck. A short corridor led us to the Ulysses Bridge. General Tyson stood in the middle of the room and studied the screen in front of him, frowning. He turned as we entered, and gave me a glare that made my bowels wither. What is he doing here? Stella answered, I had to set him free in order to use his bot. We don't have time to argue. We should push him out an airlock and tell the Yshtari that he's the moron who blew the hole in the side of their ship. I'd be glad to do that for you, sir, Stella said. Her statement sent a dagger through my heart until I remembered it was part of the act. I hoped. Just so you know, Minx won't do any translating unless I give him permission, I said. General Tyson spun around and marched up until his mustache was tickling my nose. From that distance, I could tell it had been dyed brown. Higston, I don't have time for your stupid games. I don't know what possessed you to go shooting holes in their royal ship, but this entire incident rests squarely on your shoulders. It is your responsibility to do what you can to help fix it. He turned about and tromped back toward the front of the bridge. I stood there, shaking. I don't know why, but the general statement struck me to my soul, like an electric jolt. It felt like a weight pressed upon me, making it difficult to breathe. Yeah, Minx, go ahead and translate for them. I staggered back and sat down on the first chair I could find. A Marine escorted Minx up to a communications console and hooked him up. I looked around the bridge to see crew members rushing around and preparing for battle. A nervous tension hung in the air as they prepared for a life-and-death struggle. This was my fault. These people could die because of my indiscretion. Not only were these people's lives in danger, but all humans throughout the galaxy. For once, I'd succeeded at something. I'd started a war. But I wasn't going to fold up and give in. No, I was a Higston. But how could I fix this? Perhaps if I did surrender to the Yshtari and told them what I'd done, they'd end their declaration of war and let the rest of humanity off the hook. Wouldn't it be better for me to die than all these innocents? My normal, selfish inner voice said no, but deep down, I knew it was the right thing to do. I had to face the cold, hard reality that I'd never done anything to benefit other people my entire life. I guess I'd built up such a karma account against me that payback had come in one large chunk. I made up my mind. To surrender to the Yshtari to get them to call off the war. If nothing else, maybe it would at least get Stella to think more kindly toward me. I stood up on trembling legs and stumbled off the bridge before I could talk myself out of it. No one noticed, since they were focused on the translations that Minx was giving them. I rode the lift down until I reached the level with the airlocks. I made my way to the Rutherford's Revenge, but stopped when I saw 2 Marines stationed outside the door. As I stood there trying to figure out how to get past them, Trina and a few others from the planet approached and stopped in front of me.
Oh, hi, Rex. Sorry, I didn't tell you this earlier, but I wanted to thank you for what you did for us on the planet.
You're welcome, I said dejectedly. She put her hand on my arm as a look of concern crossed her face.
What's wrong?
I looked out a viewport and stared at the Rutherford's Revenge. During our escape, I kinda started a war.
Oh.
As I studied the Marines guarding my ship, a new idea occurred to me.
Trina, where is the ship you took to get here? It's docked on the other side.
I need you to do something for me.
Anything? What?
Tell Stella I'm sorry, and tell her that I relinquish my ownership of Minx and give him to her. The command words to open his control panel are, Delroy for President. Then, the passcode is, I hate pink. She shook her head with confusion.
I don't understand.
I gave her arm a squeeze before I let go. Just do it, please. I turned around and ran through the corridor to the other side of the Ulysses. There, without any guards protecting it, sat Stella's Cobra-class scout ship. I knew it was worth a lot more than Minx, but I hoped she would accept the trade as fair. After shoving the last of my doubts aside, I strode up to the keypad and entered the access code.
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on bigworldnetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.